This video is going to cover some pretty tricky material. I've never seen this covered before. I kind of had to discover this on my own. I had to look around the internet and find some really hidden examples of tables. And even then, I just had to sort of work out what was happening on my own. I just had to do some tests and see how this was working. So I'm not really sure if you could find that much information on this. And I don't even know if there's a name for what this is. But once you see what's going on here, I'm going to title the video Odd Ratio Row Span Concept. Because once you see what you could accomplish with doing something like this, you'll see exactly why I'm calling it odd ratio. I'll explain it more later. I just don't want to give too much away right now. If you look at this table right here, it says this table is not what it seems. And it isn't. So if you look at this table, and if I asked you, how am I creating this table? You might say, well, it's pretty easy. You just make a table. You have two table rows. There's this one table row, and then another table row right here. Then in the first table row, you put two TDs, each with the value of item. And then in the next table row, you put another two TDs, each with the value of item as well. And if that's what you said to how I created this table, you'd be wrong. This table actually has three table rows. This table right here has three table rows. So it doesn't look like it has three table rows. And in all practical senses, whenever you'd want to make a table like this, you'd want to make it with two table rows. The reason I'm starting off showing you this table is because it's going to be a little important to understand the way that row span works, because you could manipulate row span in a certain way to get really wonky types of tables. It'd be pretty tricky to accomplish these tables without knowing this little row span trick that you could do. So this is how this works. These right here, this is the first table row. These two items right here. Except this first item has a row span of 2. Then you have another table row. It's this one. This piece of data right here is the only TD in the second table row. It also has a row span of 2. So I don't really know exactly how this works. This might seem pretty hacky in a certain way, and I guess maybe it even is. But once you see what you could do with this, it's not really hacky, because there's only one real way to do what we're going to do later on in the video. So in the final TD is this item. And this item has no row span attribute, so it's the default row span attribute. So I'm going to go over that one more time quicker. This is the first table row. And this item has a row span of 2. And this item has no row span attribute, so it's just a row span of 1, default. And this is the second table row with the only TD. It has a row span of 2. And then this one is like this one, except this is the last table row, the third table row, and it has a row span of 1, the default. It has no row span attribute. Okay, so let's look at the code here. So this is it. So you could see if you change this, I'm just going to remove it and see what happens. So it completely messes up the table. So now it looks like it's taking up a row span of 2. I'm going to put that back to 2. Okay, so now I'm going to comment this out. And now I'm going to bring in, that I have copied to my clipboard, another table. I actually don't want to keep this commented out. I want to be able to see them both. So let's see what you could do now. So if you look at this table, the reason I called it odd ratio row span is because it looks like this element right here is taking up a row span of 1.5, because there's 2 on this side, then there's 3 evenly on this side. So this is, again, this seems pretty hacky in a certain way, but getting a table to look like this would be really difficult, and you'd have to do something like make these have a row span of 2, and then make these have a row span of 3. But instead, these only have a row span of 2. I'm never using more row span than 2. If you look at the code, this is what it looks like. So now I'm going to try to explain a little bit of what's happening here. Okay, this is the first row. And this first element has a row span of 2. So it's taking up 2 elements. And you could see that it kind of is. It kind of is taking up 2 elements, because It's not taking up 2 whole elements, because if it was, then this line right here that my cursor's on, it would come out over here, and this whole thing, this first box would be the size of both of these. But it's not, because this item right here is the next table row, and it has a row span of 2 as well. And if you look at it, it's the same size as this one, but the difference is if you look at this one, and you look at the table that the other TD that it's touching, it's only touching 1. But this one is touching 2. It's touching this one, and it's touching this one. Okay, so now the third table row. This is the third table row. It has a row span of 2 as well. And just like this one, it's touching this table, this TD, and it's touching this TD. Then this final item, and this final item has no row span attribute. It's kind of like this one. So this is pretty cool. When I first saw this, I was like, okay, this is going to be easy. And then I tried to do it, and it sort of tricked me up a little bit. I was like, wait a minute, how are you getting a 1.5 row span over here? And it's not 1.5. It's just that this right here is one table row. This right here is another table row. Then this is another. So it's being built like this. If I could, I have no drawing tools that I could use, but it'd be like this. This is the first table row. Then it's this. Then it's this. And then it's this. So it's kind of doing this little thing here where it's not building even table cells. It's sort of like this one is only half. You get it. It's kind of complex to explain. Once you practice with it, it'll start making more and more sense. I have another table here copied on the side. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Okay, so this table is going to be basically the same thing but reversed. So now this side has 3 and this side has 2. So again, this is the first row. This is the second row. This is the third. And then this is the last. Let's look at the code here. So let's say last. This is the last. Okay. I have one more table I want to bring in. Okay. Now this table is going to be, well, you're going to see what it is. So this is the same table as the last one, except now the table cell data is a little bit different. This is telling you that this is the default row span, and it's the first TR. This is the first TR as well, but it's the row span of 2. So this is sort of indicating to you how this table is made. So this says that this is the second TR, this is the third TR, this is the fourth TR. And these two both have a row span of 2, and this has the default row span.